Welcome to the Leadership Lab, where we explore the journeys of inspiring leaders. And today I am thrilled to be joined by Dr. Lisa Hale of Focused Leadership Consulting. Lisa, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm really good. It's wonderful to be with you, Karen.
Happy to have you. Lisa, let's start a little bit with your story. Can you share a bit about your background? If you backed up a little bit and share a little bit about how you got started in this space.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'll say that I have yet to find somebody with the background I have who is a senior level executive coach. I started out, I grew up in a family business. That's not unusual. I sat on the board of my family business. So I was in and around business and leadership my whole early life. But I really decided that I wanted nothing to do with business ownership. And so I went off to graduate school and got a doctorate in political economy. I don't know any other political economy PhDs who are executive coaches. But the interesting thread, and we find this often happens in life, I think, that we follow our curiosity, we follow our passions, and then we find out that the things that we think are just disparate are actually really quite intertwined. And so it was that way for me as well. I ended up doing my research and my doctorate on decision making by leaders. Now, those leaders were at the country level. I traveled to Europe. I interviewed a lot of very heads of state in Eastern and Central Europe right after the collapse of communism there. I studied the rise of authoritarianism, the overthrowing of it, and what it was that the new leaders who really didn't have a lot of leadership experience were up against when they were now the new guard and having to try to lead their countries in a new direction. So it's not that hard for me to project that scenario, that experience onto the experience of leaders who are rising up in companies or leaders who are trying to take their companies in a new direction. And so it was pretty natural for me to want to work with leaders. But I didn't do that right away. I went to work at Los Alamos National Lab. I was the chief liaison with the State Department there. I got to meet incredible four-star generals and admirals, and Colin Powell, who was an extraordinary leader when he was there at the State Department. And I was the chief liaison there for the lab and helped develop some really cool programs that were designed to lower the temperature of conflict in the world. And in doing that, I had a great time, but I was really doing a lot of internal coaching. I had a whole variety of personal history that required me to do a lot of personal development and coaching as well. And I wanted to be a different kind of parent than the ones that I had been raised with. Not to say that they didn't do their best. They certainly did, and they loved me and all that, but I just wanted something different for my children. So I went to work. And in the course of it, I saw that the most extraordinary leaders also did really great internal personal work. The best coaches did that kind of work, and that we don't have to choose between them. We can bring both of them together and both be tactical and systems focused and results oriented and really strategic while also still working on the internal world.
Wow. Was there like one particular instance or scenario or situation that sort of was your aha moment that just, where you decided, okay, I've worked with all these leaders, I've been in all these different spaces, but what was it that really clicked for you that said, okay, I'm going to take this and build a business around it and go forward?
That's a beautiful question, and there are two parts to that story. The first part of it is that when I was in one of my very favorite personal development journeys with a company called Clemmer and Associates, which is very experiential. So it was a lot of, for people who can be cerebral, like I can certainly be cerebral, they use the analogy of unscrewing your head and taking your brain off and putting it under the chair for the time being and let yourself just experience transformation. And so it was a very impactful set of programs. And I got to go back for many years and volunteer and staff as a coach, the programs that they were doing. So I coached in the advanced leadership program quite a lot. And when I was there in the Redwood Forest, helping terrified CEOs do terrifying things on the ropes course, like climbing a straight up and down 35-foot tall pole and then having to balance on the top of it and then jump off and try to catch a trapeze. They were terrified. I understand. It was terrifying when I did it too. But the whole point of it is to break through a fear so that you don't feel so constrained by the things that hold us back. And I stood at the bottom of that pole and coached person after person for hours. And I found my groove in that moment. I realized I was incredibly good at helping people identify what's really in their way in the moment very quickly and helping them get connected to it and then use that as the motivation to get themselves where they want to go. And I continued for years to get emails from many of those people thanking me that it was a life-changing event. So that's probably the moment I realized that I deeply love, passionately love coaching and being with people as they work through their stuff. But then there was another incident which tipped me right off the cliff because remember I said I didn't want to own my own business and I had a high-paying job and all that stuff. Well, there was a whole lemony snicket series of unfortunate events that resulted in me no longer having that job. And I did not get fired. I left because I got divorced basically, and I could no longer travel twice a month like I had been doing. And I was the sole custodial parent. And so 3 very young children, and I needed to be home, so I couldn't be on a plane anymore. And I'd left my job and I was the sole custodial parent, and there were no jobs other than the one I had that would make it viable for me to show up for my kids and still work. And so I came to the conclusion that I had to start my own business. And it was a painful journey. I have to just acknowledge, Karen, it was not a quick and easy decision, but my back was against the wall, and I did that moment that many coaches do where I had to coach myself. And I was like, I wasn't exactly looking in the mirror as I recall it. I think I was sitting on the floor in my living room against the wall with my kids off visiting a friend. And I think I said to myself, Lisa, if there's a problem in your life, you got to look at yourself for the cause. And that was sort of the beginning of the model I often use in coaching, which is called radical ownership. But really what that moment was about was there are things in your life that are not working. And there's a lot of agreement for the victim story that I could tell myself in my community, but that wasn't going to get me anywhere. So I just asked myself, if you put on your big girl pants, what are you going to do about this? And I just realized, okay, I need to create something. And then I asked myself the question I would ask any client: what do you passionately love more than anything that creates value for other people that you could do in forever, as many hours a day as it takes without getting tired because it feeds your soul so much? What is that thing? How can you bring that to creating something that creates value for other people? And I remembered being in the Redwood Forest, coaching people up that pole. And I started to put the dots together that really what I was put on the planet to do was to be there to help people get out of their own way, free themselves from their prisons they put themselves in, and help them strategize about tactically and practically what they're going to do to get where they want to go. And I've helped companies create over $2.5 billion in valuation increases, and the amazing executive women increase their salaries so that they are at the same level as the men in their space, 140% salary increase in some cases. I've helped leaders of nonprofits bring in tens and tens of millions of dollars in a really short amount of time, and teams be known as the stellar team in their organization from this place of getting at the core of what's driving you, what are you really committed to, and how can we just make sure the systems and the processes and all the things you're doing, plus your internal systems, are all lined up to get you where you want to go. And when all that alignment is in place, success is literally inevitable. It just is. And I love it. I love doing that. So those were the two things that were the turning point. And so after that, honestly, I was raised Jewish, so this is a little bit of a thing to say, but it's often said, a come to Jesus moment, right? I had a come to Jesus moment. And I was like, okay, if it's going to be, it's up to me kind of thing. And so after that, I said, all right, I'm going to create a coaching business. I can do that. I can see it. I know I'll love it. I can still take care of my kids. And that was in a January of one year. And by February, I had enrolled in a coaching program to get a certification. By March, I had a logo and a URL and an LLC. By April, I had a website. And by May, I had my first client. And it took me a little while to get out of the low paid coach role, but I eventually became one of the best paid coaches in my industry.
That's a beautiful story. I love that. Thank you so much for that. So there's a couple things you mentioned. Some of your early challenges. Obviously, we have challenges throughout the journey. I'd really love to hear one of your earlier challenges and some of the learnings and insights that you gleaned through that experience.
Well, I've been at this a long time, so I've had a lot of challenges. I would say speaking to newer coaches, I think the most significant one was undervaluing the value of coaching and figuring out how to calibrate packaging and pricing and, getting out of the way of thinking that when I am offering coaching to someone that it's about them paying for me, because it's not about me and it's not about my value. It's about what the value is in it for the client and what they want to achieve. And if I can honestly say that I see how they can achieve it and I can help them, then what they're buying is their own future, and it's not them buying me or my time. So I think that's a really important thing, and I've struggled with that just like every coach does for a while. But then later, a big challenge was that I had been honestly so successful at people just sending business my way or bumping into, like they say, a blind squirrel will bump into a nut every once in a while. I was such a lucky blind squirrel. I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, nearly 7 figures, just from referrals and bumping into clients, pretty much. It felt like to me. That wasn't actually true, but it seemed that way to me, that I really didn't feel like I had a system that I could turn on when suddenly that wasn't there. And I was aware early on that I needed to fix that. And I was a sole custodial parent with 3 boys, trying to juggle all that at the same time. And it was not at all easy to figure out how to systematize the stability, the ARR, MRR, right? Those are recurring monthly revenue, right? So those things were challenging to do. And I've learned a lot about that, I would say. Yeah.
And is that one of the things you help your coaching clients with as well, is the systemization or the automation of some of the systems behind this, not only just coaching them personally, but also from the business context, helping them run a better operation or do better outreach. Are you involved in that aspect of coaching as well then?
Yeah, I really am. And what's been interesting is that I've come to a place where I'm very excited to partner with people. I passionately love personal development, spiritual development, awakening processes with clients. And often that will be enough for them to get out of their own way and make things happen. That's often true, but it's not always true. Sometimes a client will have so much overload and overwhelm that they can't even think about how to step back and be strategic. So I came around to recognizing that in the same way that I need to have systems that make it possible for me to do my day-to-day without, making myself crazy, that my clients needed that too. And so one example of that, Karen, is that I had a period of time when I really needed to be talking to new potential clients, and I was very successful at creating a lot of first conversations with people. So I had 70 of them in the space of 45 days, which is a great many, right?
Yes, yeah.
And here's the thing is that my brand, the way I've imagined it and talked about it and thought about it, is is very warm and friendly and approachable, but it's also very top drawer. And a top drawer brand is going to respond after a conversation like that with an email, a follow-up, a thank you. And I was happy to do that. And this was after ChatGPT had already become available, that this, big glut happened. And I was really happy to pop the transcripts of these conversations into ChatGPT and say, use my voice and write a really wonderful response to this conversation. And I gave it a much better prompt than that, but that was essentially it. But it turned out that with 70 of them in 45 days, that was still too many for me to do it with cut and pasting. Right. And I was falling behind, and it was really feeling bad. I felt like I wasn't being who I'm committed to being. So I built an automation to make that happen, so that I show up on a call or somebody schedules on a call with my scheduling link, and I don't have to do any cutting and pasting and downloading of transcripts and moving them from here into ChatGPT or converting them from a document into a text format or whatever. And I don't have to keep repasting in the prompt over and over again. I set it up so it's happening all automatically. Those repetitive things can all be automated with your brand, your voice, your personality. And it's, in my opinion, very important to not give the machine the keys to the car, right? So the end game was to have an email in my draft folder, not an email that was already sent. And so at the end of a day of several meetings, all I have to go do is go look in my drafts folder. And sometimes I have time to do it right after the meeting. And the beautifully written email that has been prompted the way I would have prompted it if I'd done it one at a time is right there. It's formatted. I don't have to change the formatting. There's no cutting and pasting. The documents are usually attached. The links are in there. And it's awesome. And all I have to do is edit it and make sure it sounds really like I wrote it. And it most of the time doesn't until I go in and edit it. But that takes me 90 seconds instead of 10 minutes. Right. And when you accumulate that over a week of just even a light load of meetings, that is very meaningful.
Yeah, so huge time saving for sure.
It's time saving for me, but what I think is so cool about it is that it keeps me in integrity with my brand and with my commitment and with my ability to use my energy and time and attention to focus on relating to and connecting with the people I'm speaking with. And so it's call it freedom to lead and solving the bottleneck paradox. Like the better you are at stuff, the more you become the bottleneck. I'm actually pretty good at technology stuff, and I'm just good enough to become a serious bottleneck in my business. So it's really important for me to not let the paradox overcome my ability to focus on what I'm really here on the planet to do, and to create as many automations and systems that make all of that tedious manual stuff easy, so that I am not spending my time on things that I shouldn't be spending my time on. And then that actually gives me freedom to lead. It frees my energy so that I'm focusing on the right things and on the right people. And I'm able to step back and say, wow, here's something I'm noticing show up repeatedly this month in my sessions. Let me write a little article about it. And then I can do that. And I get to actually write it. I don't have to say, oh gosh, it would be great if there was an article about X, Y, and Z, and then write some generic, I don't know, Claude or Perplexity written version of it, which everybody can see through, even if they don't recognize they're seeing through it. Right. It frees me to do what I am, to really create. That's what I'm saying.
That's amazing. So obviously you share these systems and these learnings with your clients.
Yes.
But for the clients who don't invest in the kind of coaching that you offer, what do you believe is the real impact to those businesses?
Yes. Here's the cool thing is that I built that automation and it was okay. Like I said, I'm just technically skilled enough to be dangerous. But I happen to have twin sons these are my younger two, who graduated from Caltech in AI. And I was building this automation before I recognized that they could have built it for me. I didn't realize that. Then one of them came home for spring break and I told him what I was doing and he was like, why are you doing that? I know I could do that for you. And I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought of that because I think of him as my son. I didn't think of him as, that. And I said, really? And so I showed it to him and he was impressed, to be honest. I was very happy he was. And then he graduated and he came to work for me part-time. So now it's become a little bit more full-time. So he's spearheading the implementation and integration and adoption arm of what we offer clients so that I can go back to focusing on what I love. I can talk about it with the clients. I can help them imagineer and ideate about what it would look like if they really made their business processes ready for what's going to be the norm in 10 years. The norm in 10 years is that everyone will have automated AI-enabled processes running the core of their administrative aspects of their business. And they'll be spending their energy on scaling and on interacting with each other at the human level. A lot of people are scared AI is going to take jobs, and it is going to take some computational jobs away. That is true. But the skill set that we all need to be focusing on is the very skill set that we coaches work with people on. It's the human skills. It's the creativity and the innovation and the imagination and the vision. And AI can help us with ideas, but it can't do it for us. And so what I like to help people with is think about, if you were to think about your business now and imagine what you actually want to be doing, what you want to be, the value you want to create, how you want to create it, what you want to give people as an experience of doing business with your business, whether you're a coach or any other kind of professional services company or in construction, like that doesn't even matter. What would you want as the engine that drives the administrivia in the background and the ideation to look like, and be as science fiction-y and out there as you can think of? And then maybe that's the thing to build, and then move your business into that state, because in 5 to 10 years, that's all businesses will be. The businesses that start now and start that way are going to eat the rest of us up. For one,
I agree.
Unless we transition with them, and we can, we can. We don't have to give up the ghost. So yes, I help clients with that. I help them with the thinking about it. I help them use these things to strategize and to imagine and to vision. And then when it comes to implementing, I either help them figure out who they need to find, or we have a team. And we're cheaper than most other teams because we don't have the overhead that McKinsey and Accenture have, but we have incredible expertise. Like, there's no better place to come from for that expertise than Caltech, to be honest. There just isn't. Like, they were building the models there.
Right.
So that's what we do to help them.
That's amazing. And what do you find is the reception to these to the AI and the systems with the clients that you work with initially?
Oh, Karen, it's such a great question, and it's still messy. There's a bumpy kind of, if you think of an exponential curve, I guess it would go this way. There's a bumpy sort of starting place, and we're still kind of in that bumpy starting place. There's a lot of adoption. There's still a lot of fear. The tools are now getting integrated and good enough that the adoption is getting simpler and easier to do, but it still feels like a big, scary black box for people who haven't done it yet. There's a pretty big gap between what people imagine or envision they want their lives and their businesses to look like and where it is. That may be especially true in 2025, given all the chaos we've had in North America. But to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be is new for human beings. It's not new in business, and that is still our focus. And the AI tools and the ability to automate and integrate things is a way to accelerate closing that gap. And the scary thing for many people who have very human skills, which are, in my opinion, going to be ultimately the most valuable skills to have, the scary thing for them is that the technical know-how to understand the full vision of what's possible and execute it feels like a very complicated problem to solve for people who are not technology natives in the AI space. And for people who are kind of like pretty tech savvy, but that's not really their first language, like me, I've been in it long enough to realize that even for us, it feels a little overwhelming. But the solution isn't to just turn it over to the nerds from Caltech because they don't understand business and they don't, I mean, my son kind of does, but most of them don't. And they don't necessarily know why they have to respond to a client right away versus when they get to it, or, they just don't, they don't know why the interface should look pretty and elegant and why that should matter. There are a lot of little weird things that the tech-focused folks don't quite get the way we do. And it's no shade on them. It's, you can only focus on whatever you can focus on, right? So the key is to recognize that these tools and the ability to use them to close the gap are tools. They are tools. They are going to become our new water that we swim in. Like we all use iPhone, we all use smartphones now. We all drive cars. Even in the furthest reaches of the poorest parts of the planet, there are cell phones and usually smartphones. So it's be like that. So we do have to figure it out. But we have to just remember that the goal is still closing the gap between where we are and where we want to be. And I think where we coaches can really help our clients with this is to help them slow down to speed up, take a breath, recognize that getting clear on the big vision of where they want to go is really useful so that you have a direction. But then you have to let the big vision go enough so that you can figure out what the next takeable step is. My friend calls it the 3-foot toss, right? So what's the next little baby step you can take? And we actually do have a consulting practice that helps companies with that, and that include other coaches, and quite love to do it. They'll say, we have all this data and we have all this blah, and we have, we need to do this. Say yes, and you will. But let's just start with, are you using ChatGPT effectively? Doing that, right? And then it might be a day. It doesn't have to take forever, right? And then the next part is, okay, let's see if we can automate this part of it so that you're not having to do that over and over again. How would that be? And then, the next part is, okay, you want to tie that to your financial software so that you don't have to worry about invoice making? They're like, oh, yeah. How about, reviewing your income and expenses? I mean, you might have an accountant to do that, but do you want to have, there are all kinds of applications for it, right? Writing up, if it depends on the size of the company and the type of company. But one of our clients has a nice automation that's saving him 15 hours a week in just credit card reconciliations. He's got $100 million construction company with a presence all over the country doing bunches and bunches of different kinds of handyman services and repair and construction and that kind of thing. And they have hundreds of credit card purchases across their whole network every day. And they've been spending 15 to 30 hours a week reconciling them in total human hours. And now there's an automation that makes that happen automatically. And they still have someone go in and make sure it's accurate, but it's been, so there are things like that, right?
Yeah. So,
and I don't do those implementations anymore. I did the ones for myself for a little while, and I was like, you know what? It took my son like 5 minutes to do what it took me 100 hours to do. So I'm just going to let him and the rest of our team that we've hired for that to do that, right? And then I get to focus on coaching and really helping people figure out, strategically, where do you want to be and what would make a difference in your world, and what are your people really good at, and how can you keep creating value in this changing world, and how do you keep your revenue stream healthy even when the economy is not looking as nearly as pretty as certain people might like to claim that it is. And how do you pivot so that you're paying attention to the new trends, and how do you keep your own anxiety and uncertainty managed, and how do you recharge your battery? Those are the things we coaches like to do, is that whole integrated picture. But then when they bump up against that AI stuff, we can say, yes, we can help you with that. just know that's solved. It's already solved. Now, right? There's a lot of that.
Let's focus on you. Yeah, no, I get it. Switching gears a little bit here, if we look at your business today, like you've had challenges obviously throughout the years. What is your biggest challenge you're facing today with what you're doing?
So many cool ideas and having to maintain clarity about what's first and what's next instead of getting myself overwhelmed and saying we have to do all of them at the same time. I have 8 books that I have written, and I am under a little bit of pressure to finish editing the first one so it can get published, and then the next one and all that. I have a course that's been completed and needs to get launched, and there's all that going on. So some of the big challenges have to do with the state of our country. My sons were planning to go to graduate school. They were top of their class. They had invitations and many invitations, and then all of those got pulled when research funding got pulled in January. And so they had to pivot. And I'm like any other mom. I'm like, oh, my babies need me, and it's distracting, and that kind of stuff happens. But it impacted me too, because I had a big chunk of my business was happening in federal government contracts, and those all vanished overnight.
So how are you pivoting to fill that gap then? What are you doing now?
Well, I was already building up the AI consulting piece, and so I just ramped that up. And I have reached out to partner with people who already have an audience that are looking for what I'm offering, and people who are good at things that I'm not good at. I'm good at the strategy of marketing, and I'm good at the design of the posts, and I'm not awesome at keeping up with it. We're building an automation to do that for me. But having someone identify creatively how to keep, I'm not, there are some people I know in our space who will just pick up the phone all day long and just randomly call people and say, hey, I was thinking about you and thinking you probably need my help. I mean, they're so not my style. So instead I've been, giving a lot of talks and talking to people who I do have relationships with, and opportunities start popping when I do that. And then now it's, oh gosh, how many of these can I actually pursue? So that it's that same level of stuff. I do think that the coaching industry is still growing. I think that the people who are really, really exquisitely good at it are the ones who are going to do well. I think the ones who keep their mind and heart and eyes out of their own fear. We all have a lot of fear going on right now, though maybe a little bit less since the outcome of the elections this week. I don't know. But we had, most of us have because it looks like there may be some sanity, balance. I mean, not to say it should be one direction or another, but just that it's not all just going to be chaos, right? That there's a little bit of a stop on some of that it might, we can maybe slow it down and make some sense of what's happening. That I think is reducing some people's anxiety. So that's, but to be able to navigate uncertainty and change on our own anyway.
Right.
And so what I remember for myself all the time is that if I'm struggling with uncertainty and change and not knowing what they really want and how to provide it, that means my clients are too. And address that. Right.
Yeah.
But so that said, the challenge is still, how do we navigate it? And yeah, I've been up against that too. And I think it's just eating my own cooking, eating our own cooking. It's reaching out for community and reminding ourselves to keep our eyes on creating instead of reacting, instead of trying to manage circumstances, look for what can we create in these circumstances that is valuable and of service. That's the only thing to do, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. If we look ahead, what's next for you and your business?
I'm looking to, I'm really enjoying watching my son learn how to lead and learn how to take ownership of this portion of the company. And he's been, every time he talks to the CEO of an AI company or a founder of a company they want to hire him. So he'd need to go work somewhere else, which I really support, and still be able to run this part of my business as a side thing, because there are so many young people with so much talent who are underutilized right now, and they have the ability to help us, those of us who already have old style businesses that we need to kind of convert into more modern versions. And I have a lot of ability to oversee them. And so I'm looking forward to that emerging and seeing what happens. I'm really looking forward to being able to coach more and more and more people as change and uncertainty and transition is happening, but coaching with this very practical, tangible add-on, right? I'm very much looking forward to my books coming out and being able to teach the courses that are connected to them. And I'm looking forward to those things. And you know, that's what I love, all of that. So if I can do that, even while my husband would like me to, he's not really my husband yet, but I'm wearing a ring and we talk about but that's where we're going. He would like me to be retiring eventually. I don't think I could be retired and still coaching, which isn't really retired, but I love it. I don't want to stop.
No,
we could go to ship somewhere and I can go I need 2 hours. I'll be back. And go have two clients a day. I think I could do that. And that's what I see.
That's amazing. That sounds so exciting. I can't wait to see how that all unfolds. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and your insights today. Before we wrap up, how can people get involved or learn more about what you're doing?
Well, I appreciate you asking me that. I just want to leave everyone with a message. I understand that many of the people who are listening to this are coaches or who are related to the coaching space. And I think I started to say that I think coaching is changing. I think that it's still growing and there's still huge demand, but there is a sophistication happening among the clients that they are now looking for validated sources of coaches. So I remain grateful that I have the credentials I have from ICF. It's not the only way to get a credential, but it's a good way. I think smart aggregating companies that pay their coaches well are potentially a really good thing to do, or grouping together and really focusing on helping clients know why, how, in what way and why, and can trust you to be high quality. When I was the president of the Colorado ICF chapter, which won several awards during my tenure, my mantra for our chapter, and everyone agreed with it, was professional excellence. I think that's the thing to focus on. So I go away knowing that you're still in a great industry and it might feel hard sometimes, but the key is just to meet people where they're hurting and help them. And we can do that. That's what we're good at. And so as far as reaching me, I think it's back to that gap thing, that we have a gap between where we are and where we want to be. And I have this tool that I created called the Gap Finder, and I'd love to invite anyone who wants to use it. It's free. It's just go in and you'll answer some questions, and what you're going to do is get a radiograph that's like a circle with it's sort of like a of life kind of thing, and it measures 8 arenas in your business, including your AI systems, and where you are with them. And you get to figure out where the gaps are biggest between where you are and where your what is, and you'll get a report. And then you'll have a way to be in touch with me when you do that. And the way to do that is rockstarteamperformance.com. And if you don't want to do that, my company's called Focused Leadership Consulting. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at that URL, www.focusedleadershipconsulting.com.
That's great. And for listening, I will share the link in the notes below, so they'll have access through this podcast as well. So thank you so much, Lisa. Really appreciate having you here. It's so great talking to you. Thanks for tuning into the Leadership Lab. Until next time, keep leading with intention and curiosity.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for spending your time with me today on the Leadership Lab podcast. My hope is that this conversation sparked a new perspective or reinforced something you already knew. Until next time, keep leading with curiosity and intention.